morning of April 12th, 1862, broke damp and gray over Big Shanty, Georgia. The little station lay quiet except for the hiss of steam from a wood-burning locomotive idling on the track. The General, a sturdy engine with a polished brass bell, sat coupled to a string of passenger cars. The scent of pine smoke hung in the air as travelers stepped down for breakfast at the trackside hotel. Among them moved a small group of men who kept to themselves. They wore plain civilian clothes, coats a bit too heavy for spring, hats pulled low. They smiled when spoken to, but their eyes darted constantly, as if measuring distance and timing in every glance. They were led by a wiry man named James Andrews, a civilian scout in the Union's employ. His plan was audacious: steal the engine and drive it north, tearing up track, burning bridges, and cutting telegraph lines to cripple the Confederate supply artery to Chattanooga. As the passengers filed inside for their meal, Andrews and his men lingered on the platform. No one paid them much mind. Big Shanty had no telegraph office, and no one expected trouble here. At Andrews' quiet nod, the men sprang into motion. They climbed into the cab of the General, uncoupled the passenger cars, and with a hiss of steam and a mournful blast of the whistle, rolled the locomotive out of the station. It took a moment for anyone to realize what had happened. Inside the hotel, conductor William Fuller looked up from his coffee and stared out the window just in time to see his train vanish around a curve. His jaw tightened. Without a word, he pushed back his chair and ran out the door. At first, he gave chase on foot, pounding down the ties in a blur of boot leather and grit. He caught the astonished stares of townsfolk as he thundered past, shouting only, "They've stolen my train." His breath came ragged, but he did not slow. Within 2 miles, he flagged down a small handcar, vaulted aboard with 2 railway workers, and began pumping the levers in a furious rhythm. Ahead, Andrews' men worked with desperate efficiency. They pried up lengths of track, yanked out telegraph wire, and stopped briefly to sabotage sidings. Each delay was meant to buy precious minutes, but behind them, Fuller was relentless. By mid-morning, he had commandeered a small locomotive, the Yonah, and drove it like a man possessed, whistling through stations and waving aside startled onlookers. The chase raged north through the Georgia countryside, steam plumes marking both hunter and hunted. At one point, Andrews' men halted to saw through a bridge, only to hear the distant wail of another engine closing in. The Texas, seized by Fuller at Kingston. Now the chase became a headlong sprint, the Texas running in reverse at full throttle to keep the pursuit hot. Rain began to fall in fine misty sheets, slicking the rails. The Union raiders shoveled furiously at their dwindling pile of firewood. The General's tender was nearly dry. Each time they stopped to tear up more track, the sound of Fuller's whistle grew nearer. At last, just south of Ringgold, the General shuddered and wheezed to a halt. The firebox was cold. The boiler's pressure had bled away. Andrews ordered his men to scatter into the woods. They leapt down, vanishing into the pines, hearts pounding. But Confederate troops were already fanning out along the line. One by one, the raiders were flushed from the underbrush and taken prisoner. Within days, 8 of them were hanged in Atlanta. The others endured prison until exchanged, and several, those who survived, became the very first recipients of the Medal of Honor. As for William Fuller, he returned to Big Shanty a hero, though he always claimed he had simply done his duty. The locals told and retold the story for years, until it became a legend of impossible pursuit. A stolen locomotive, a barefoot chase down the ties, and the conductor who would not give up until his engine was back under his hand. In the end, The Great Locomotive Chase was not just a Civil War skirmish. It was a duel of iron and willpower, played out on ribbons of track through a divided land.